We're going to talk about the 5 biggest mistakes people make when they're buying hi-fi equipment, because it's not just beginners. Veterans make these same mistakes because this hobby is filled with traps and people keep falling into the same ones over and over again. So I'm going to help you think about things a little bit different than anybody else. So sit down, grab a cup of coffee, and let's talk about the 5 biggest mistakes people do when they buy hi-fi. Mistake number 1. People think about this all wrong. And I'm going to tell you there isn't why. I thought about it all wrong. We think about the gear before the music. I get it. We love gear. I love gear. Everybody talking about gear loves gear. But what we really should be doing is sitting around in a support group. Hello. Hi, my name is Randy, and I bought 3 DACs this year. Hi, Randy. What really matters is that we know ourselves. Not only our taste in music, but our taste in gear. The problem is that knowing what your taste in gear, it takes time. It takes a lot of time. So, start slow on purchases, long on music. A lot of the things are going to be focused at the beginner, but I think this is valuable information even if you've been an audiophile for 30 years. The pathway to knowing what you like is listening a lot. And that's why the product that I would recommend is a streamer. Personally, for me, it's the Weem Ultra. A couple of reasons why. Number 1, you have access to all the streaming services, so you can listen a lot. 2, it has DSP, Digital Signal Processing. And we're going to use that later to figure out what your perfect speaker is. There's also room correction on there, has an HDMI input, and this thing can be upgraded later. I still use the Weem, and I have access to some pretty high-end equipment, pretty high-end streamers too. But the Ultra is such a versatile product that you can use it with a high-end system. No amount of streaming awesomeness and DSP can fix a speaker that you don't like. So how do you figure out what type of speaker you like? I grew up on a farm in Nebraska, so I know what good beef tastes like. That's why I am thrilled to talk about today's sponsor, Good Chop. What do? Well, they send you meat in the mail. I devoured the entire box in about a week. And I told my wife, I don't have to go to the store anymore because it saves me time. But more importantly, I don't have to complain about the quality of the meat that I buy at the store, because Good Chop makes sure that you only get the best stuff. And not only that, if you don't like it, Good Chop has a 100% money-back guarantee. You can tell a lot about a company or a store by how good the ground beef is. That's the first thing I ate. It gave me a lot of optimism about everything else. And the New York strips, yeah. It's the best frozen beef I've ever eaten. And I'm a bit of a beef expert because at 11 o'clock at night when I was a teenager, my dad would drag me out of bed because the cows got out. Anyway, go to goodchop.com/YouTube. Use the code CHEAPAUDIO50 in all caps. You're gonna get $50 off your first order and free shipping. Ton of meat to choose from. Chicken, salmon, beef, obviously, pork. Other cool thing about Good Chop is they source everything from America, from local farms, ranchers, fisheries, and that's awesome because I grew up on a family farm. So save time, get the good stuff, go to goodchop.com/YouTube. Use the code CHEAPAUDIO50 in all caps. You're gonna get $50 off your first order and free shipping. Thank you, Good Chop, for sponsoring today's video. Second mistake, thinking there's a perfect speaker for you. There isn't, really. And even veterans fall into this trap. If I just get this speaker, everything's gonna be great. The problem is, how do you know what you like? The first thing I do is I listen to a speaker at about 85 dB, and I listen to music that I'm really familiar with. And I see if I start to get listening fatigue, which means after about 45 minutes to an hour, your ears literally start to hurt. And for me, if they do start to hurt, that means there's a bump in the mid-range, usually between 1,000 to 2,000 hertz. Think about like an old tube TV, you know, where the voices just came forward. Didn't seem like there was a lot of bass, didn't seem like there was as much high, it just seemed shrill. And if that's the case, well, you know that you don't love a mid-range forward speaker. This is where the EQ comes in. You start to adjust the EQ. So you keep your speakers, you bring down that mid-range. If they sound better, well, then you know you need a speaker with a different sound profile. If you don't have enough bass and you bring that up and it sounds better, well, then you know you want a speaker with a little bit more bass. Once you know your own speaker and the EQ that makes that speaker sound better, then you can start doing some research. It's difficult because, again, no speaker is going to be perfect. But now that you know what you're after, you can start to go into forums, watch YouTube videos. The best thing is to try to find a forum where somebody owns the speaker that you're interested in and start to converse with them. Find out what speaker they came from. Find out what the room is like. But if you can find a speaker that gets close, you can still use the EQ for any other issues, and you're most of the way there. Third mistake, I think, is when people ignore physical media. And I know, I get very romantic about physical media, but there's a reason. We have unlimited streaming. And because of that, even subconsciously, we're losing a bit of a connection with our music. There's something about holding a CD, holding a cassette, holding a vinyl record, reading the liner notes, interacting with the artwork, having to get up, change the CD, flip the record, whatever it is. Streaming's kind of like fast food. Physical media is a bit of a sit-down restaurant, even if it's at Cheddar's. Use streaming to discover what you want to buy on physical media and then go buy that. And even if you have a small collection, there's something special about when you choose to go listen to that favorite album on vinyl or on CD. It raises the musical experience. It's completely intentional. Streaming is about convenience and it's about sound quality. Physical media is about connection and sound quality and a journey. If you get into vinyl, you can start, well, finding the perfect cartridge for you, finding the perfect phono preamp for you. It's another pilgrimage to better sound. Personally, when I'm listening for pleasure, it's always physical media. Work is streaming. Physical media for me is ritual. That's my church. The whole process of listening is preparing me for an experience. But even though you've been listening for hours, you got your perfect speakers or close to being perfect speakers, and you got a bunch of CDs and vinyl, something else happens, which derails your journey. Upgrading too quickly. Falling in love with buying gear instead of listening to music. It happens all the time. I used to do it. Sometimes when you upgrade, it's more of a lateral move than anything else. Our ears need time to grow, and the more intentional listening we do, the more our ears develop. Even if we have hearing damage, when we exercise the critical listening muscle, we start to hear more. And all of this chasing of gear ultimately leads to wasting money. We live in a world, if you're watching YouTube, where we love to hear about new gear. And the takeaway generally is, it's better. And we think to ourselves, if that's better, then we are missing out on enjoyment. But even if it is a little bit better, there comes a point where we need to start to understand what really makes the music better. And it doesn't always have to do with how it sounds. For me, the key to really connecting with my music and enjoying it was about how it made me feel. And I'm not just talking about the music, because music fidelity does make me feel something, but there's other things that make me feel something. And we're talking about that next. Mistake number 5 is not concentrating on how the gear makes us feel. We get obsessed with specs and completely ignore the most important part, and that might be how it looks. Could be the Advanced Paris A10 Classic with a glowing tube and VU and power meters on the front. It could be as simple as how you interact with the piece. How do the knobs feel? Do you like touching it? How easy is it to use? Does the HDMI connection drop out all of the time? Does the Wi-Fi drop out on your streamer all of the time? Do you like interacting with it? Do you catch yourself looking at it, even when you're not listening to music? And this goes back to knowing yourself again, knowing what's important to you. Do you like a piece that has meaning? Do you like the company behind it? Doesn't matter. There's no wrong answer here, but there needs to be meaning behind our gear. Because when we have deeper meaning, we have a deeper connection. That gear tends to stay with us for a longer period of time, which means we get to know it better, which means we enjoy music better. We have those intangible things now. And the whole experience is better because now we don't have this hanging anxiety in the back of our head about what do I need to get next? What's the next best thing? The problem is all of this takes time. And all of it takes a little bit of self-reflection, introspection. The good news is, though, you can get started today. And the only thing that you really need to do is listen to as much music as you possibly can. Maybe jot down a few notes, figure out what flavor you like, and before you know it, you will have a system that is not only meaningful, it's enjoyable, and it will give you an emotional outlet. Whether you're sad, you need some energy, you just want to marvel at the wonderment of what this artist created, or if you just want to watch something on TV. How your system sounds is only part of a good system. And if you've been on the merry-go-round buying a bunch of stuff, maybe you need to ask yourself, why? What am I chasing? I think a good test is, can you tell somebody in one sentence why your turntable is important to you? Why you love that one? Why you love that amp? If you can't explain it, probably means you haven't found the right one. I'm not saying you'll never buy something again, but the right one is the one that you like interacting with and you like to look at even when it's not on. If you like this video, check out some of these other videos I made. This one's about cassettes, why they're important, even though they don't sound the best. And check out this one, it's about a CD scandal. Thank you so much for watching.